Welcome, welcome, welcome on in. Hope everybody has had a fabulous day. That I do. I hope that your holiday season is off to a great start.
Did you know?
Oh, I did not know. Hold on. Let me turn that off. Did you know? Welcome, guys. This is a fabulous Nuts ASMR. And today we have our next Christmas story live. So, tonight's story is, I'm still getting kind of set up. Tonight's story is called The Christmas Builders. Let's check it out. Let me give myself a little itch. All right. Oh, Lord. Sorry, guys. All right. The Christmas Builders by Charles Edward Jefferson. This story was published in 1909. That's kind of a continuous modern theme that has gone on forever. So let's start. The Christmas Builders. There was trouble in the land, all on account of Christmas. Men stood bewildered, and women were distracted, not knowing what to do. The trouble was that Christmas had become too small. Once there was room enough in it to spare. Only a few of the inhabitants of the earth brought their treasures into it. But little by little, the world learned of the beauty of Christmas until everybody almost wanted to get into it, and not only into it himself, but he wanted to bring all of his relatives and friends, every one of them, laden with packages and bundles, until at last Christmas became overcrowded. There was not enough room to even turn around. Everybody was so huddled and jostled, and there was so much scrambling and pushing that some people quite lost their temper. And even in the palace of Christmas looked sour. It seemed strange that a world would be embarrassed and really injured by a desire of people to be loving and to manifest their love by giving gifts. And yet, that is the very thing which happened. Christmas became a breeder, a dismemberer of dark and ugly feelings. It is well enough when only a few people make up their minds to be affected and generous. But when everybody decides to put on the Christmas graces on the same day of the year, the world cannot stand the strain of so much goodness all at once. And the result is a tragedy almost as deep and dark for many hearts as if there were no Christmas at all. For in their eagerness Christmas, men forgot the claims of brotherhood. They were so zealous to get into the enchanted palace themselves that they forgot all about their neighbors who wanted to get in also. One cannot very well manufacture gifts himself, and therefore someone else must make them. One cannot carry gifts himself, or at least not all of them, and therefore someone else must carry them. As Christmas was just a day, and as it only came once a year, all the days preceding Christmas became frenzied and feverish, and men and women by the thousands were compelled to work so fast and through such long hours that they were not able to reach the palace at all. They had their faces in the direction of it, but they were all so jaded and out of breath that when the palace came into sight, they had not the energy to enjoy the beauty of it and could only look on, half dazed and benumbed, at the more fortunate mortals who had been able to get inside the golden doors. Letter carriers experience that Christmas really was began to lament long before the month of December came, seeing in their imaginations the huge bundles of letters and papers and packages which must be carried up the crowded roadway of the days which led to Christmas. Expressmen also never spoke enthusiastically of Christmas, but scowled at the mere mention of it as though it were a prison instead of a palace, a sort of punishment which was inexorably inflicted on them at the end of every year. Dressmakers were also sickened by the thought of Christmas, for just before that beautiful day, every woman wanted a new coat or a new waist or a new skirt, and everybody wanted it at once, so that she would be ready for Christmas. The result being that the dressmaker and all the girls in their shops were so driven and so roundly scolded by impatient and sharp-tongued customers that it was really difficult on the 25th of December to feel charitable and forgiving and kind to all. Christmas Day was a palace filled with beautiful sights and sounds, but the fact is that never got into it, but sat down exhausted and despondent at the door. Clerks in the big stores had no good word for Christmas, notwithstanding its hallowed association. Some of them, I fear, hated it, especially the young women clerk, for the hours were so long, and the crowds in the store were so big, and the air was so bad, and so many of the people were so unreasonable and inconsiderate and crotchety, and the cars at the evening were so crowded, and the nights seemed so short, that the clerks were heard saying to one another, "Won't you be glad when Christmas is over?" Many children even grew to be afraid of Christmas. They dreaded it as though it were a huge goblin or monster casting a shadow over the days and which preceded it. The little delivery boys at the grocery store became so weary lugging good things for Christmas dinners that they could not laugh real heartily or enjoy their own dinner when Christmas Day came. It was so late the night before when the last basket was delivered that the boys fell into a sleep too deep even for dreams. They lost the rare and radiant pleasure which is the birthright of boys, the joy of dreaming of what good time is coming on Christmas. And as for the little girls who worked all day long tying up bundles in the basements of the great stores, they did their best to keep alive in their hearts a genuine love of the birthday of Jesus. But alas, in many cases, their heroic efforts were in vain. "I just hate Christmas," said one little girl to another at the end of a long and weary day. Things had indeed come to a tragic pass when the thought of the one most splendid and glorious day of the entire year quenches the sparkle in a child's eye and crushes every feeling of ecstatic anticipation out of a child's heart. It was indeed a spectacle to cause one to stop and ponder this widespread shrinking and shuddering at the very thought of Christmas, this long drawn sigh of relief when Christmas was really over. And when I look around and saw how all the days immediately preceding Christmas were thrown into tumult and confusion, in which thousands of men, women, and boys and girls were wounded, and many of them hurt with an injury that was deep. And when I look at the days succeeding Christmas and saw them covered with the wreckage which Christmas created, the holiday season resembling indeed a great battlefield on which a terrific battle had been fought. The maimed and the bleeding lay moaning, waiting for the influences of a new year. I began to ask myself, what is the cause of this great tragedy? How can humanity be delivered from such a great scourge? It seemed unendurable that the anniversary of the birthday of Jesus should be permitted to wreck the happiness of so many hearts and homes. If Christmas stands for anything, it stands for joy, peace, and goodwill. This is the heart of Christmas. The first Christmas was ushered in by a burst of song, and the last Christmas to be celebrated on our planet will no doubt dawn the same heavenly way. Peace on earth, goodwill towards men. So the angels sang and keep on singing and will continue to sing forever. "Don't be afraid," said the visitor from the sky, "for I bring you good tidings of great joy." Fear was banished when Jesus came, and so were all the dark and dismal specters of the mind. The shepherds were glad, and so were the aged saints in the temple. So were the scholars from the East, and so was everybody except Herod, who came to know of the arrival of a wonderful baby. Human hearts began to sing when Jesus came, and nothing must be allowed to reduce the volume or the sweetness of the music. What is wrong, I ask, with Christmas that it has become a sort of discord in the harmony of the year? Why should the one most illustrious day of all of the months loom dark and terrifying before so many eyes? Why should pain and sorrow flow like swollen and dismal streams from a day created by infinite love for making human hearts rejoice? On investigation, I discovered that Christmas has simply become too small to accommodate the Christmas sentiment of the world. The dimensions of the palace were not sufficiently spacious to allow all of us to get in without treading on one another. One day was not large enough for the celebration of the birth of Jesus. 24 hours were not sufficient to allow everybody to practice the precept of Jesus. It is more blessed to give than to receive. The Christmas heart had outgrown the narrow limits of the Christmas day, and the problem of the world is, in the first decade of the 20th century, was how can Christmas be enlarged? The query raised a host of interesting questions. However, it was propounded. Men began to ask, is it possible to expand the limits of Christmas, to extend the dimension of its golden rooms, to widen the area on which it stands? For instance, would it be possible to make Christmas cover 2 days instead of one? How would it do to say that Christmas is the 24th, 25th, and 25th of December, or the 25th and 26th of December? At first glance, one would declare that this is quite impossible, for the reason that Jesus was born on the 25th of December. Therefore, we have no right to include in our Christmas celebration any other day. But right here we face a curious and puzzling fact. Nobody knows on what particular day of December Jesus of Nazareth was born. The question has always been a matter of dispute, even among those who might presumably be best fit to know. He may have been born the 24th or the 26th, or even the 27th or the 28th. Indeed, for all we know, the palace of Christmas on any day of the month, for every day is equal for consecration, and in order to be sure that we have the right day, why not follow Christmas to cover the entire month? The ancients were so fearful of slighting one of the gods that after they erected altars to all of the gods whose names they knew, they sometimes erected an altar to the unknown God, in this way being sure of not omitting from the scope of their reverence any god who had a right to be included. Why not make sure to have the right day in December by building the Christmas palace upon them all. 31 foundation stones instead of one would support a really loyal structure, and surely a palace filling the dimensions of a month would be none too large for the commemoration of the most stupendous event in human history, the birth of Jesus. By thus expanding Christmas, we should not get into such a pet and fury as some of us do now. We should have time to think about the meaning of this great event for which Christmas stands, and we should also be more accustomed to the exercise of the Christmas virtues. As things are now, we have scarcely time enough to bring the Christmas graces into fullest bloom. One day is quite too short. The the entertainment and the nourishment, beautiful and charitable thoughts to kindle and foster kind and forgiving feelings, to set the heart singing and the spirit adorning. For all this, a single day is hardly long enough. If we should think such thoughts every day for a week and a month, our mind would get accustomed to these high altitudes and would not sink back so readily to lower and unworthy levels of mental and emotional conduct. If we should go right on for a month forgiving our enemies and breathing charity for all, we might get so habituated to these heavenly feelings as to never be willing to give them up. A month is none too large a foundation on which to build a mansion, spacious enough to fit the coming of our Lord. Not only would it be better for ourselves if some such way Christmas might be expanded, but a host of our brothers and sisters would be gladdened by the change. With an entire month at one's disposal in which to do one's Christmas shopping and to tie up one's Christmas packages and to plan for one's Christmas dinner, the burden of the preparation would not fall so suddenly or with such crashing force upon those who minister to us, and many who are now unable to rejoice in the Christmas celebration would be found joyfully singing Christmas songs. Much of the congestion and the crowding of the present would be rendered impossible, and Christmas would become what it ought to be, a time of universal exaltation, a season of worldwide gratitude and love. But when one gets thus far, he discovers that he must go further. Why confine Christmas, someone says, to the month of December? No one can be certain that Jesus was born in December. The New Testament does not say so, nor does the New Testament contain evidence by which any particular month of the year can be proved to be the month of Jesus' birth. It is a plausible arguments have been adduced to prove that his birthday came in September. October also has put in its claim. There are only a few of the 12 months which have not stood up and demanded recognition and honor as the month of the year in which the King of Glory came. Months hitherto silent will no doubt speak up later. It is evidently not God's will that we should know in which season of the year Jesus came. Not one of his apostles felt inspired to give the information upon that interesting but important point. God has hidden the key to that secret, and nobody knows where to find it. This is the Lord's doing, and it ought to have meaning for our eyes. If we do not know the month of Jesus' birth, and if God has so fixed things that such knowledge is forever beyond our reach, why not build the Christmas palace upon the month of January as well as upon the month of December? A 2-month Christmas would be better than a 1-month Christmas. And as it is impossible to draw the line at the end of January and say, thus far shall Christmas extend and no further, why not take February, March, and April? Yes, May, June, July, also August, September, October, and November. We are justified in leaving out any of the months of the year. Do we not call it the year of our Lord? Why then don't we? Why not then let him have the whole of the year as his suitable mention of his birth? A Christmas a year long, that would not be too protracted. Christmas all the time, that would be ideal. Always extending merry greetings, always wishing others well, always generous in our giving, always humming the angel songs, always seeking and praising the King. Not that not that the sort of Christmas which the world admires? Certainly it is the kind of Christmas most pleasing to the heart of Christ. I imagine I heard him saying, as he beheld Christmas, which our civilization had produced, I hate your Christmas. I am weary of it, because so many of my children are fatigued. It is an abomination unto me, because it has rolled a crushing weight on so many hearts. Away with it. It is too small. Build me a more spacious Christmas. Extend the walls of it until all the New Jerusalem. It shall lie 4 square with 3 gates on each side, so large and hospitable that the population of the earth can put their glory into it. Let the Christmas season be without of the year. Now, when I hear him say this, I ask myself a question. Who is sufficient for this thing? Who can build this stately Christmas temple enough to fill a year, to make one day bright and glorious? Even this is sometimes hard. We brush away our tears. We crush down in our heart the dark and fearsome feeling, saying, this is Christmas Day. I must today be cheery. Today I must wear a smiling face. But tomorrow I will pick up again my burdens. Tomorrow I will cry again. For the sake of the children, I will pretend that I am happy only for a day. It is by no means easy to make an ideal Christmas, even one day long. Many a times the Christmas crystal palace has been shattered to fragments by a stone hurled by the hands of the heart's foes. To build a palace covering the extensive area of a year, planting a column on each one of the 365 pieces of that strange mosaic which men call time, swinging over all a dome full of light and the glory of God's face. This is an enterprise as difficult as it is stupendous, but one from which no true follower of Jesus ought to shrink. And I saw that the old Christmas had really outgrown and realized that a new Christmas must be speedily constructed. I set out at once in search of an architects and builders competent for so vast an undertaking, who I said can build a Christmas great enough to satisfy and bless the world, who can take the walls of our little Christmas and by some magic power extend them until they reach around the borders of the year. So I pondered, and I was greatly troubled, because I knew not where to go. Where I shall, where I asked, shall wisdom be found? First of all, I went to the learned men, the men who knew what the past has been and what the present is. I knocked at the door of all the universities, beginning with the oldest and ending with the youngest, but in no one of them could I find builders for this new and gigantic work. I then turned to the marketplace, where men of practical genius are wont to congregate. I mingled with the captains of industry. I glanced down the lines of merchants, bankers, manufacturers, the men who are doing the largest things in our day and generations. And I said in a loud voice, can any of you gentlemen build the world a larger Christmas? And not a voice replied, I can. Thereupon I went to the palaces of the kings, where I lived the great and mighty earth. And when I noticed the glittering of the crowns and the gorgeousness of the sepulchres, I felt encouraged, for I said, here is a royal thing to be attempted, and surely royal heads and hearts shall prove equal to the task. But alas, at the door of every royal palace, the same words were given. No one here has skill or power significant to build a larger Christmas. Not yet hopeless, I turned to the parliaments of the world and looked into the august faces of the lords and centers of generals and princes and men who have carved their name in the body of life of their time. And I said pleadingly, can you or any men you know come and erect for the world a larger Christmas? And my question brought nothing but silence for an answer. Then I stole into the study of the philosophers and glided into the groves where walks the poets. I passed from the court to court where learned judges sit. I entered boldly into the camp where the army and navy leaders study plans for the conquest of the world. And everywhere I asked the same baffling question, can you erect for mankind a more spacious and more fitting Christmas? And in every place the same answer was returned, strength and wisdom equal to so great a task do not dwell with us. And then I turned to the aged. Wherever there was a gray head, I paused and put once more my question. Wherever I find a man of experience, of achievement, of earthly wisdom, of renowned skill, of acknowledgement, there I propounded my interrogation, ever receiving the same disappointing reply. And when I had traveled around the world and could find nowhere any man or woman, high or low, rich or poor, great or humble, mighty or feeble, who could give me what I sought, all at once I remembered that Christmas is the one celebration of all the jubilees known in human history which cannot be carried on without the presence of children. I began to reflect upon the fact that Christmas is the one holiday which cannot be separated from the brightness of a child's eyes or the music of a child's laughter. I fell to pondering the fact that when the old folks think of Christmas, they think of the days when they were young, when their children are grown and have gone far away from home. Parents refresh their hearts by thinking of a time when there was a Christmas tree in the nursery and the glad shouts of children exulting over their treasures filled all the house. And I remember also that husbands and wives who have no children find their hearts going towards other people's children at Christmas time. And when I saw in my mind's eye the whole world gathered together for the celebration of Christmas and beheld a little child in the center, I began thinking of the day when in Capernaum Jesus sat a child in the midst of 12 men, saying, "Of such is the kingdom of heaven." And when this is all flashed upon me, I started out at once in search of a child. To him, undoubtedly, I said, has God committed the secret of Christmas. He can tell me where the Christmas builders can be found. I went, I asked. So great was my reward. Through the child's eyes, I looked into the child's heart, and there, standing radiant and beautiful, were 7 angels. The angels which are the builders of Christmas. Their names, these are their names: wonder, humility, trust, simplicity, purity, joy, and affection. By these the first Christmas was constructed, and without these no genuine Christmas can be built. These are strong angels. They dig deep and they mount high. They can build a Christmas covering the year. Christmas is glorious because it is the creation of a child. Man is not the architect of it. It is not a creation of human ingenuity or wisdom. It was built in the first place by a baby, and the glittering of it was simply the reflection of the lights in the baby's eye. The kings of the earth have often taken counsel together, but they have never conceived anything so beautiful as Christmas. For a marvelous, so stupendous God fell back upon a child. Children are the magicians of the earth. Their wizardry surpasses that of magic. The scope and power of them, who can measure it? There was nothing in the world like Christmas till Jesus came. On the day of his birth, Jesus called the nations together and set a little child in their midst. From the beginning, a full grown man had stood in the center, but the circle gathered around him had never been joyous. Sometimes the central man had been a general and sometimes a king. Occasionally he had been a scholar and frequently a saint. But no matter who he was, the circle was not enchanted and the hearts refused to sing. But as soon as a child was placed at the center, humanity began to organize itself in unprecedented ways and to move forward along original lines. It began to sing a new song. The world had for ages been despondent and hopeless, and no miracle worker, however mighty, had been able to lift it out of the dark mood. But when God took a child and set him in the midst, then there was the world's mouth filled with laughter, and all things became new. This is the difference between the ancient world and the modern. The first had an adult at the center. The latter has a child out of a child's heart, and the child's heart is the Christ heart, are coming the forces for the rebuilding of the world. The problem of existence is the task of keeping the child in us alive, the heart that wonders, trusts, and loves. Christmas is not a day. It is a mood. It is independent of days. We celebrate it on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, any day of the week. Christmas is indifferent to days. It has nothing to do with the almanac. It has nothing to do with place. It is independent of geography as it is of chronology. It has no relations to human government or even to race or blood. It is an institution which can be set up on any soil and under the folds of any flag. Christmas is a spiritual creation and belongs to the kingdom of the heart. It is constructed by the angels of the heart of a child. If it then be a mood, it can be extended over a week, a month, a year, a lifetime. It can be built upon time, upon eternity. If you confine it to a day, you miss the meaning of it. If you try to cram it into 24 hours, you crush it and lose the essence of Christmas. The Christmas spirit is the only spirit by which men and women really live. The Savior of the world has said, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven, and that is his name for Christmas, except you became as a little child. Well, there we go. Even in 1909, people are thinking about, hi Edward, I see you. Hey Stinkbug, hey Patrick, welcome everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. Yes, thank you guys for being here. That was a very interesting essay. I'll change the description a little bit. I hope you guys enjoyed it. So it looks like I'm doing one heavy story, one light story. So we'll see what pops up in tomorrow's Christmas reading. Thank you guys for being here. Do you like my Christmas scene? It's like a Christmas tree. Anyway, with that being said, have yourself a Merry Christmas. Or you can even have a fabulously nutty Christmas. Bye, guys.